once again, everyone, to the Stadium Journey podcast. Thanks for listening. Our website, stadiumjourney.com, is the world leader in sports travel information with reviews of over 2,500 stadiums, arenas, ballparks from all around the world. We're more than just an awesome website. You can connect with us on our social media channels at Stadium Journey. Follow us, like us, retweet us, everything. You can find audio versions of the Stadium Journey podcast very easily. Pick up your phone wherever you search for your favorite podcast. Type in HIAC Talk Radio Network. We'll pop right up. If you want to watch video, you always distract me, Dan. You want to watch video versions?
Hold on here. I'll do this.
I might think you died or something. If you would like to watch video versions of the podcast instead of just listening, go to our YouTube page. You'll find it all there. And if you want to be part of our studio audience live in the Peanut Gallery, we record every other Tuesday night at 7 Eastern at danlaw.tv. And we got the gang all here tonight. Sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds, you know.
If you only knew.
You could follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez, the Ballpark Hunter's here. Follow him at Ballpark Hunter. The above average comedian, Dan Calachico, is here as well. Follow him at DanLaw83. Are you showing off your new Proton Pack?
Yeah.
And I am Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And we're recording this at the end of January. What's today? The 24th, middle of winter. Some of us are buried in snow. So, of course, where do your thoughts go? Where do your thoughts go? You think of baseball, right? So tonight, we're not going to just talk about the same old baseball like we usually do. We've got Shane Barclay here with us tonight from JapanBall.com. We're going to talk about some baseball in Japan and some of the fantastic trips and talk about their website and all kinds of good stuff, Japanese baseball. Shane, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to a fun time here.
Well, let's hope it's fun. Well, now you give us expectations to live up to. So, yeah, as you noticed, we're all in the darkness and Shane's out in the light. He's out on the West Coast right now having a good old time. So we really thank you for making time out of your schedule. So JapanBall.com, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the website?
Sure. Yeah, our website is your source for all things Japanese baseball. If you have just a little bit of curiosity or are a serious fan of NPB, which is Nippon Professional Baseball, which is Japan's major leagues, I recommend you check it out. You can learn about the teams, you can learn about the stadiums. We try to profile all sorts of players and just historical things, and really just want to give content for people who have a thirst for baseball and are interested in baseball beyond just what's in the U.S. And if you're really into it, also on our site, at our core, Japan Ball is a tourism business. We offer baseball tours to Japan, as well as other international destinations. Japan's our flagship tour, but we go to Korea, Dominican Republic, Europe, and then specific spots in the U.S. as well. We're a baseball tour company, and we just like spreading the gospel of Japanese baseball because we love it. I think any baseball fan who gives it a chance will fall in love with it as well because it's a unique, it's the game we love, but it's a unique version of it. And I think most of the quirks and unique things about Japanese baseball are things that your typical baseball fan could appreciate definitely in a good way.
I know a tour of the Japanese baseball leagues it's a bucket list item for me. So for someone who hasn't been exposed to the Japanese brand, what would you say is the biggest differences between what you see in North America, what you see over there?
That's easy. It's the fans. The crowd is a completely different experience from the American baseball crowd experience or the North American experience. It's more akin to, I'd say, a combination of maybe a soccer game, how you'd envision in Latin America or other parts of the world where they love soccer, and a college football game with the organized cheering and the cheering sections and whatnot. It's 9 innings, 27 outs of locked in, enthusiastic cheering, no matter the score, no matter where they are in the standings. The fans are loyal and they really view themselves as part of the team. And just to get into a little more detail, so every player on offense, 1 through 9, has his own specific song, complete with lyrics and percussion, that at the very least, the cheering section, the Owendon it's called, they're going to be, doing at the top of their lungs, but most of the stadium is doing it as well throughout the entirety of his at bat. And so there's 9 innings of that. And it's pretty cool. The home team will sell tickets to the visiting team and let them all sit together so that they can have their own traveling version of the Owendon as well. And they'll be doing the same thing when their team's at bat. So yeah, it's really 9 full innings of cheering. And that's definitely the biggest thing that anyone will notice when they go to a game.
Wow, you sold me already. That's
yeah, the cheering section. I know they do that in Korea. So is that something prevalent in Asian baseball leagues from what you've seen?
Yes, it is.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Even down, high school and college baseball are huge in Japan. They do the same thing in amateur baseball as well.
Now, is that when you were talking about the individualized cheers for different players, is that similar to soccer in that it's organic, it comes from the fans, or is there a production kind of manufactured piece through the teams?
It comes from the fans. The Owendon is, I'm not sure the exact affiliation, but they are recognized by the team as the official cheering section. But they're the ones that produce it. And, there's like legacy members who are kind of the leaders of the Owendon, and they'll come up with the songs and then distribute them before the season. And fans will be practicing, I guess these days on YouTube, they'll be practicing the song so that they're ready to go, not even just from opening day, but even in spring training. I'm sure they work out the kinks a little bit in spring training and into exhibition games, but yeah, they're all working on it, and it's a formalized process, but I think not necessarily from the team itself.
Geez, I work as a PA announcer for a baseball team. That sounds like a lot of pressure on me if we had an Owendon in Brockton.
Well, it's all done with percussion, and singing. Like there's no actual song that's piped through the speakers.
It's like a supporter section on steroids, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, if a player would move from one team to another team, would that same song follow said player, or are they looking at a whole new entourage, a whole new compilation for the player in the new spot?
That's a great question. I'm not positive about that. I think that the new fan section would want to have, take the pride in creating their own. Can't be certain though. I actually don't know, because it's a great question. I want to find out myself now.
We used to have the Japanese ballparks on our website, didn't we, at one point, or some of them at least?
Yeah, I think we had all of them. They're still somewhere. They just have to be reloaded. I think we had
Sean McDonald lived in Japan for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of before, like when we started Stadium Journey, he was in Japan and then coming back. And of course, he lives in New York now. So he had brought a lot of those Japanese baseball reviews. And I believe he did a bunch of Korean reviews as well that were kind of on the original site, which seems like a forever ago now.
Well, it was. Shane, one thing I've heard about the Japanese baseball parks is the concession experience is like nothing we would see over here. Is that true?
Yeah, well, of course, the food is definitely different. There's very few overlaps, I'd say, on traditional food. Like, it's not a given that you're going to be able to get a hot dog, but you might be able to get like a deep fried prawn that's in a hot dog bun, but it's not a hot dog. The like equivalent of a hot dog, I'd say, the staple, which is a pretty typical Japanese kind of street food type thing. It's called takoyaki, which are octopus balls, but not those type of balls. They're like little pieces of octopus put in a ball of batter that's fried, and then so you have like kind of a golf ball size thing with batter and then a piece of octopus that you put like some mayo and pop it in your mouth. And so that's kind of one of the staple foods. And then bento boxes, which is just like a typical Japanese lunch, which is like a box lunch that's divided into maybe at least 5 or 6 different items. So you kind of pick the combo you like. That's really common. I always say there's matcha everything. Matcha, as in the green tea. It's a really big dessert. They make desserts out of it there. So like matcha ice cream is one of my favorites. So the food is definitely different. The one thing about the concession experience that is definitely unique to Japan is the beer vendors. So they have these beer girls. It's, I mean, 95% female, I'd say. And they are carrying pony keg tap, and they're pouring fresh draft beer at your seat. And there's not really like pouring rights isn't such a thing. So whichever is your favorite Japanese beer, they're like 4 or 5 major brands. Like they're pouring it at every stadium, and they're hustling like 9 innings, up and down. It gets hot in Japan in the summer. It's like being in the Midwest, and they're running up and down to get a fresh poured beer at your seat, and it's like, I don't know, $6 or $7 for a beer. Maybe the high end ones like in Tokyo are like $8. So it's really affordable. And this
That's night. They have hot chocolate.
Yes.
With on the like the jetpack. My wife always called it the jetpack of hot chocolate, where the guys run around with.
Yeah.
If that's possibly.
That's a good question. I saw that. Giants are my home team, and so I've had plenty of nights in the bleachers there, freezing my butt off, and that hot chocolate goes by, and you got to get it, And then they have the whipped cream, and they pour that on. In Japan, they also do cocktails too, whiskey sodas. They also dispense the pre-mades. They dispense those. I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, the big bourbon fans out in Japan.
Yeah,
from what all the distilleries tell me, it's like, yeah, we just sell our stuff to Japan. We don't even sell them to the Americans. Well, staying on concessions, when you go to a ballpark here, concessions are extremely overpriced, even in the minor leagues these days. What about in Japan? You said a beer was $6. What about those octopus balls? Is it something outrageous or respectable?
The whole concept of charging you like crazy because it's the only option. Maybe a Japanese person would say, have a problem, but it's not like the, 100% upcharge that you see in American ballparks. And the other thing is it's hugely popular to bring your own food in, and it's encouraged to do that. Oh. The Japanese are legendary for their convenience stores, like their 7-Elevens and equivalents are really high quality, and they're all opportunity to bring in they were pouring the beer, and I thought, oh, they made them pour them out as proof that like they're not going to bring it in. Turns out all they ask if you're going to bring beer in is you pour it in their cups, and then you walk in with the beer in a cup. So you
Such
could,
such a foreign concept here in the States.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, even if you could you can bring food to some ballparks, but beer is a no-no.
Totally.
I know the Milwaukee Braves did that back in the 50s, and they stopped and they kicked everybody off. But yeah, that is a strange concept to us, but it seems like that could make sense. I would love to bring my own beer, bring a 6-pack to a White Sox game instead of paying $11 for a 20-ounce. Yeah, that's all over every ballpark. That's
Yep.
okay. Well, yeah, we can learn a lot from the Japanese baseball league.
Totally.
Yeah.
So with the beer crew and the kegs on their backs, do they do that also to reduce the trash? Like, are they refilling cups that fans would already have, or is that kind of a no-fly zone and fresh cup every time?
They actually will give you a fresh cup, but it is an interesting topic about the trash because that is definitely another unique aspect of Japanese baseball. I mean, in Japan in general, you don't see a piece of trash on the ground. You could spend a month in the country and you won't see a single piece of trash on the ground. And if you leave when you leave the ballpark, you won't see a single piece of trash on the ground either. And when you do go throw your trash away, I took a video of it last time I was there because it's just amazing. It's not just a trash can or just trash and recycling. It's like 8 different receptacles where you put your plastic in one, you put your food waste in one, you put your chopsticks in one, you put your bottles and cans in one, and every single person diligently separates their trash. You pour your liquid into like a drain spout before you put your cup away. And one time when a couple funny stories about that. One time, one of our guests, he knew that peanuts were probably hard to get, and peanuts are his favorite ballpark snack. So he brought a bunch of them, and he shared them with our group. And so naturally, everyone started doing what you do with peanuts at a ball game. You just start dropping the shells on the ground. And one of our hosts, who's a Japanese woman, who's like, always trying to make sure that oh my gosh, she about had a heart attack and immediately was like, pick those peanuts up. You're going to make us look like ugly Americans. And, everyone was just shocked, but you just kind of get used to it after a while. And the other one I had was I was leaving a ballpark and I just exited the gate or was about to exit the gate. And I saw a group of guys who were like fish swimming upstream, trying to work their way against the crowd exiting the ballpark. And I was like, I thought they had a lot of determination on their face. And I kind of like took a look at them. I was like, what are those guys doing? And I kind of thought that maybe there was a giveaway of some sort at the gate, or they're handing things out and they missed it because they were trying to fight back upstream. Like they needed to get something. And so I stepped aside to watch them just in case there was a giveaway or something like that. And I found that they were just fighting their way to the trash cans by the gate so they could throw their trash away.
Now, there's
That's
something
awesome.
You wouldn't see in America.
That's for sure.
Maybe Canada.
Sure. Yeah.
I can't find trash in Toronto either. I mean, maybe certain sections, but
it's there.
It's there. Okay. Canada's always been very clean compared to what I've seen. Wow. So those are just a couple differences. And I know some ballparks that I visit, like St. Paul, they had the whole thing of recycling and teaching people where food and waste go. I don't know if you remember that. In other ballparks, I've seen some of their helpers come out with garbage bags, and they go up and down the aisle and they throw away. So, anything we can learn from Japan about how to keep the ballpark clean, especially throwing peanut shells on the ground, because that has to be a pain in the butt to clean up for any ballpark.
As someone
service.
who worked in a ballpark for many years, peanut shell. When some teams, the new trend is going peanut free. I welcome it 100% because cleaning up peanut shells was the biggest pain in the neck out of anything, out of all the other garbage that you come across in a ballpark. Peanut shells, man, they get everywhere.
Well, I know the Florence Yalls. I don't think they were the Florence Yalls yet. They were one of the first. I think they might have been the first stadium to go peanut free. I know Hartford did, right?
Yep.
Soon after, and the GM said, yeah, part of it is just cleaning up peanut shells. I mean, that's probably just as big of a concern than the peanut allergy. So yeah, this is great for us. It saves us so much time cleaning. And it's so accepted. It's so accepted here to throw peanuts on the floor. You go to a steak restaurant, you go not one of those Texas Roadhouses, or you visit Five Guys. Just chuck the peanuts on the floor, whatever.
Yeah, the Japanese tourists would have a heart attack if they saw that.
Yeah.
Surprised somebody didn't come out with a little broom.
Yeah, we should have a heart attack with that. We should. Why do we accept peanuts on the floor?
The Japanese, I don't know if you guys saw in the World Cup, they're making the Japanese fans are making the news because they were picking up the stadium at the end. And that's a thing that's
right.
known in
That's
Japanese sports. Like when they travel the world, whether it's usually it's the teams, like you'll see, in, I don't know, the Little League World Series or, amateur tournaments where there's a Japanese national team, they'll be up in the stands cleaning up as a way of not because they're saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how dirty it is, but because cleanliness is something they value and they value the hospitality, and it's their way of showing appreciation of helping clean up. And so whether it's fans or players, you'll see that all around the world.
So having a quick look at the Japan Ball website and going through the stadiums, a couple of things jumped out at me as being kind of different stadium wise from Japan to here. And one of the big things was the number of places that have still the sliding pits, which have been all but eliminated they are eliminated in Major League Baseball. There might be like one or two just old schools kicking around in minor league baseball. And it got me thinking that, it feels like we're in that stadium arm race again, where, at the very least, teams are talking about putting in millions and millions and millions of dollars into their stadiums, or it's time to build brand new stadiums. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum about like Atlanta, where the Braves built theirs. We've talked about, Texas and whatnot. Are the stadiums in Japan viewed the same? Like, is there that arms race? Is there that push to get newer facilities with more revenue streams and more luxury items, et cetera, that we have here?
Yeah, good question. Because I'll start by this. No, that is not a concept there. The ballparks are pretty, just functional, I'd say.
Okay.
There is the newest ballpark is in Hiroshima, and that's the one where, if any of you guys would go to it, you'd feel like, oh, this is kind of looks like a modern ballpark as you know them to be. Most of them are, symmetrical, and none of them are that new. It's kind of like more the, I don't know, 70s era baseball parks. So it's a little bit of throwback in that way. So it's really, for the most part, it's just all about the fan and game experience. Like they haven't really started to do the whole stadium as an attraction concept. The Rakuten Eagles in Tohoku, they've started to incorporate some of that. They're kind of a little more forward-thinking team. Rakuten's a big tech company, so they're kind of have a more modern way of doing things, and they have a Ferris wheel and things like that at the park. So that was a big deal in Japan. Like it was, I think a lot of people viewed it as kind of heresy, but they're saying like, they got that from the U.S. of like, let's try to get families and fans out here, regardless of how the team's doing, like just to come to the park. And then the reason why I hesitated when you first asked the question is that the newest ballpark that's just about to open, so Hiroshima is the newest until this year, is in Sapporo, the northern island of Japan, where the Fighters play, and it is insanely beautiful. And if you look at the drawings, the renderings of it, it's about to open up, so there's photos of it now too, but it's unreal. It looks like it could, based on what I've seen, it could be at least be in the race with any MLB or any park in the world as far as the coolest park. Like it's incorporated into this huge development that's like has nature and has this, I don't know, like the Minnesota Vikings have that big open window on one side. It kind of looks like that. Sapporo gets really cold, especially early in the season. So it's retractable.
I'm looking at it.
It's called SCon. Our site, we're working on the page for it for our site, so you might be looking for it there. We don't have our haven't gone live with our page on our site for it yet, but SCon Field Hokkaido is unreal, and I'm kind of hopeful that creates a bit of an arms race, for better for worse. Sometimes it creates makes it more expensive and whatnot. But the fact is that in Japan, the ballparks are not they're not the attraction, and I think that they could do a better job with that. They don't have to go so extreme, but the fighters, I think, are going to really. I'm hoping that they do really well as far as the team's not very good, and I feel like people are going to show up just because of the ballpark. And if that happens, then I think other teams might take a cue from them, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of a new wave of ballparks in Japan.
Yeah, it could be like the Camden Yards of Japan.
Exactly.
Just set the style.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because it's just like so much better than all the other ones.
No, I'm looking at the pictures here. How it's not a dome; it's just like a roof that just opens up and slides over in separate pieces. And you're right; it is very stunning. And how big is that stadium?
I don't know the seats on it, but all the parks there are all a little bit smaller than MLB standard MLB size. I think that one is a little more intimate, like maybe into 30,000 somewhere.
35,000, yes. Yeah, which that's a good size for a ballpark.
I'm all
in some cities here. That. Yeah.
So which Japanese stadium would be kind of like the classic, like the grandfather, like the one to see? Probably not like Wrigley Field or Fenway in age, but have that status.
I'm glad you set me up that way, because they actually have two ballparks that are about 100 years old. And so those are the two that come to mind. So the first one is Jingu Stadium, or Meiji Jingu Stadium. That was built in the 20s, I want to say. And it was built for college baseball to host their big tournament, because like I said, amateur baseball is really big there. And actually amateur baseball was huge and was the biggest show in town for most of baseball's existence in Japan, which is 150 years. 1872 is when baseball started in Japan. And then it was an amateur game for most of its existence, and college and high school baseball were all the rage. So they built Jingu Stadium, and they also built Koshien Stadium, which they built that for the high school baseball championship. So Jingu Stadium's home of the Swallows in Tokyo, and Koshien Stadium's home of the Hanshin Tigers farther south in Nishinomiya, which is kind of by Osaka. And those are the historic ballparks. Koshien has ivy on the outside of the stadium, so it kind of has that in common with Wrigley Field. They're the two of, I'm sure it's less than 5. I don't know, maybe they're the only 2 ballparks that are still being used for professional baseball. That well, I guess I'm going, but my point is Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig played there. So you have Fenway, you have Wrigley. I know Ruth played in Wrigley, because I think that's where he did his called shot, right? But
that's where it was.
And of course he played in Fenway, but he played in these 2 ballparks too. And I think that those might be the only 4 that are left. Maybe there's another one out there.
It's interesting. I like looking at your pictures of Jingu Stadium. I would never ever guess that was built in 1926.
Yeah,
it looks like a 1970s era stadium.
Yeah, they've renovated it a little bit, and actually there's a petition going around to save it, because there's this obnoxious development project where they want to tear it down, and the people are trying to fight back because of all its history, and it would really ruin it's not going to be a beautiful stadium. It's about the development around the park more so than the park. So it's nothing. You said, like you said, it's, when you look at it, it's nothing amazing, but the history there is amazing. And Koshien, though, is really the one, like we were talking about, the one ballpark. That's the one. It's got the it's got the most history and it's the most unique. It's got an all dirt infield, which is, as far as I know, is the only pro ballpark in the world that's all dirt. So that in itself, you just see it, you walk up and it's interesting. But that dirt is like hallowed dirt, and mostly, or pretty much 100% because it's home of the high school baseball championship. Like I said, it's called the Koshien Championship, and that is by far the biggest sporting event in Japan every year. It's like a combination of March Madness and the Super Bowl. And I say that because in format, it's like March Madness. It's a single elimination event that like encompasses the whole country. And then like the Super Bowl, just as far as prestige and how big a deal it is. And the Hanshin Tigers, which are probably the number 2 most popular team in Japan, gets sent out on the road for a couple weeks every year and playing on road games or in alternate home stadiums because the high school baseball takes precedent. And the stadium was built about 100 years ago for the sole purpose of high school baseball, and they're respecting its origins.
And one other thing that kind of jumped out at me about the stadiums when I'm looking at your pictures, the amount of foul territory in each of these parks. Now, is that a result of, like, I know when you say a lot of foul territory here, you would say probably Toronto and Oakland as a result of being like a multi-purpose design stadium. Were the stadiums there, or are they designed for other purposes as well as baseball, or that's just kind of the way they've done it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of it started with just these, there wasn't a whole lot of, they weren't trying to give a lot of charm to it. It's just like this kind of symmetrical concrete beast, there aren't really other professional sports, at least when these stadiums were built in Japan, that would have, like the soccer league, for example, was not a big deal when these stadiums were being built. So I don't think that was really part of the purpose, except for the Sapporo Dome, which is now being replaced by Escon Field, which we talked about in Hokkaido. Sapporo Dome has been host to like cross-country skiing, World Cup soccer, rugby, all sorts of stuff. And I thought it was pretty cool that they have like skiing events in there. But yeah, I think it's Tokyo Dome hosts like big concerts and stuff like Michael Jackson and Prince, like back in the day, like with those level performers. But yeah, I think it's really like, it's interesting. The teams in Japan are owned by corporations. Like they represent the corporation more so than the city, like in name. And the corporations just viewed these teams originally as a marketing arm of their company. So like if you're SoftBank, you just view this team as like just a way for people to get to know your brand. They weren't really putting a ton of thought into all the intricacies of baseball, even to the extent of the GM of the team might be like a VP of marketing from the company who just like rotated into this gig running the team. And that's changed a lot now. It's not so much the case anymore. They do more exist as an entity that is here to win and make money. But you kind of see from the culture in Japan some leftovers of that mindset.
So I'm looking at the map of the 2 Japanese leagues, and that's like the equivalent of the American and National League, right?
Yeah.
12 teams total. How feasible is it to visit all 12 teams in, say, a 2-week period?
Well, it's very feasible if you come with us. So we do a tour every year, where, so the way our tour is set up to Japan, like we do an annual trip at the end of the summer to Japan, at least one, but our flagship tour, if you do the whole thing from start to finish, it's usually maybe, I think this year will be 16 or 17 days. You'll see all 12 teams play a home game. So you can knock them all out in one trip. And it's not easy putting that together because, the schedule is different every year. You can't just replicate the same tour every year. But the bullet trains are what make it possible. You can cover the whole, and we'll take one flight usually per tour, and that's up to Hokkaido, where we talked about. And they're actually building a train eventually to get up there. But for now, you got to fly. It's a short flight. But you get 5, maybe 6 teams. You could do a day trip from Tokyo. There's 3 teams in the Osaka area. So you can knock them all out. And most people who come on our tours, that's a bit much for them. And maybe they have the goal of doing all 12, but they don't have maybe the time or money to do them all at once. So we divide our tour into 3 segments and then plus a Tokyo only segment. So really 4 choices where people can kind of pick and choose how many games they want to go to. And the main tour this year will be, I think, 8 games. And then you can do 2 game segments. So you can do 2 games, you can do 8 games, you can do 10 games, you can do 12 games, or you can do the 5 games in Tokyo. And that's like the way we offer it up to our guests. And we'll have a handful of people every year who do the whole thing. And then they get into the Japan Ball Hall of Fame if you see all 12 ballparks. So then that's a little carrot at the end, other than just having those notches on your belt.
At the end of that 2-week time period, are you just dead, worn out, tired, or is it doable? I mean, I know it wouldn't be like trying to do like the whole American League in 2 weeks. That'd be impossible with the distances. But
you definitely are. You definitely are tired, and we can't have too many off days because we also have to be respectful of people are flying to Japan for 2 weeks. So you can't make it like a month-long trip. The one thing that definitely works in our favor is you're going north-south and you're not changing time zones. There's only one time zone in Japan. And then we try to do it so that, for example, I said there's five or 6 teams in Tokyo, depending how you want to cut it up, where you could see them just in a day trip. So we'll try to keep a base in Tokyo, a base in Osaka, and spoke out from there as much as possible so that it's not packing up your luggage every single day and going to a new hotel. But there is a lot of that. And we just treat it as hey, it is a baseball road trip, like we're hitting the road. We're all in this together, try to pack light, hop on the train. And the trains are so easy and smooth, so you can sleep and you don't have to do the whole check-in and all that like you would for an airplane. So, on our tour, it's my job to make it as smooth as possible. So like you can do it on your own if you want, but like if you pay Japan Ball to do it, then we're going to make it so that you can kind of relax and not stress and just follow directions, just like, okay, we're going here today. And we still give you plenty of time if you would like, if you don't want to just nap to explore the cities we're going to. But we try to say like, hey, we're going to the game. This is where you want to be for the hotel, for the game. And then for checkout is what time you got to be there. We try to build in as much freedom because I don't want to be doing the whole like hold the umbrella and everyone follow me. And you can't make a move without being with the group. We try to incorporate freedom within that journey that we're on.
How long have you been putting on these trips, Shane?
So Japan Ball's been doing it since 1999. Bob Bavasi was the guy who founded the company from the famous Bavasi family. He founded the Everett Aqua Sox, and kind of his whole family was in kind of baseball operations and GMs and all this stuff. But Bob was like, I don't want to be able to get fired from my job. So he goes more of an entrepreneur, and he started Japan Ball in 1999. And actually going back to our first, what we first talked about, his first idea was he wanted to bring minor league baseball operators to Japan to teach them a thing or two about how they do it in Japan. And so that's how it started out. And then he quickly just moved to bringing fans over to Japan. And I worked with Bob's brother, Bill, who is the former GM of the Mariners and Angels. I worked with him at Major League Baseball in the commissioner's office. And in 2018, I was looking to leave back home for California. And I really wanted to do something in baseball tourism because in my job, I really liked organizing events and trips. And so he introduced me to Bob, who had
get some mild sauce.
And so Bob taught me, he said, hey, I'll teach you about baseball tourism and come on one of my tours and I can show you what I know. And I didn't realize at the time, but he was looking to get out and retire. He had just bought a boat, wanted to sail. And so I took over Japan Ball after doing a few trips as a guide in 2020, right before COVID hit. I took over Japan Ball, so that's awful timing. But so I've been doing it for, I guess, COVID, counting those COVID years, 5 years. But I'm excited to get back because we haven't been able to go to Japan since the end of 2019. And in the meantime, I've been expanding to other countries that we were able to go to. But Japan is where it's at for us. So can't wait for that.
That just sounds like an amazing trip. That is something I've always dreamed of doing. So I may have to keep in touch with you after this podcast.
Yeah, please do.
So you were talking about expanding into other countries. What other places does Japan ball cover?
Korea, correct?
Yeah, Korea.
KT Wiz.
We're going this year. It's going to be a quick trip to Korea. The idea is to just go to games in Seoul, and there's a bunch of teams in Seoul, so you can go to 4 different ballparks there, and that's in conjunction with Japan. So what we're offering for our guests is, I mean, if you really want to do it, you could do Korea and then do the whole Japan trip. That would be about 3+ weeks. But we have it set up so that you can do the Korea trip, which is like, I think it's going to be 5 days, 4 games in 5 days, something like that. I'm about to confirm them this week. That's why I don't have the full concrete info. And then you can hop over to Japan and do a couple games in Tokyo, or do the main tour and kind of, like I said, you have these different tour segments, so you can chop it up how you want. But just kind of do an Asian baseball trip. And we haven't done a whole lot in Korea, so that's why I'm just starting off slow. And eventually I'd like to get to the point where you can see all the KBO teams. But right now our focus is on getting back to Japan. So there's Korea, the Dominican Republic. I used to live and work in the Dominican Republic for Major League Baseball, and I studied abroad there. It's like a second home to me. And that was actually my original, when I left MLB, I was looking to do baseball tourism to the DR, bringing teams there and whatnot. And so we do tours there for the Winter League, and then we go and go to the MLB team academies. And it's a really open baseball culture there. And I have a lot of friends and former colleagues and whatnot. So we're able to get a really I say it's like a deep dive in the Dominican baseball machine when we go to DR. And then we have Europe. We're making it every other trip. There's a thing called Honkball Week. Honkball is baseball in Dutch. It's an amazing event. We went there this past summer, and when it comes back to Harlem in 2024, we'll go back, and I'm hoping to combine that with a jaunt over to either the Czech Republic or Germany. And then we have the USA as well. So try to keep it a little more unique for the USA ones this year. It's Washington State, going to minor league games, major league games, independent league games, and then hopping up to Alaska for the Midnight Sun game. So the Midnight Sun game, I'm super pumped for, and I haven't been yet, but I feel like should be on everyone's baseball bucket list.
Yeah, we've discussed the Midnight Sun game a bunch of times on this show,
Yeah.
and I think that's how you and I got in touch because
Exactly.
of the Midnight Sun game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we had the PR / radio play-by-play. Oh, what the heck was her name? She's with the Portland Sea Dogs now. Emma
Tiedemann.
I think she worked up in Alaska for 1 year.
Have any of you guys been?
No, it's fun. Just getting to Alaska is kind of a pricey trip, and I looked at it during the COVID years and then the year after, and you couldn't even rent a car. It's not a very good looking ballpark. I mean, the experience is there. It's just, it looks like a art director set from some reason, but that's probably one of the experiences everybody wants to do. I've never really been that gung ho. I know I looked into going up there with Japan ball, and I'm like, okay, do I go to Alaska to do one game, or do I drive out to Washington, fly to Washington State and check out a bunch of summer collegiate ballparks and scoop them all up? That's kind of the catch-22 that I'm in.
Totally.
But yeah, I'm sure I would love it.
It's not easy getting up there. I find that most people who want to go, Alaska in the summertime is amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you're going to go to the game because that's a really unique baseball experience, but you got to kind of make it about more than just the game, because otherwise it's kind of a long way to go to like a high school style ballpark.
Right.
Yeah. That's my problem when I go on trips, and this is my wife and I fight over, you're just going out. We're not going out there to see a ballpark every day. And it's like, ugh. It's like it's become an obsession. Why can't I would love to just travel someplace and not see a sporting event.
Huh.
That'd be very hard for me to do. And it's, I got to
What's
tell
that? Who
myself,
does that?
I
Yeah,
did that once
seriously.
and I regret it.
Oh, normal people. Normal people
so I
do
mean,
that.
like I'll be
Right.
in Alaska, instead of saying, wow, you get to see the Midnight Sun game, you do see a game and you get to enjoy the natural beauty of the last frontier. It's just that should resonate with me. You'll see one game and you'll get to enjoy Alaska. You've never been up there,
There
so
you go. Feed your
you know,
Jones and then get to
gotta
enjoy it.
punch me in the face, knock some sense into me.
Well,
My
Dave once called ballparks for folks like us who like to travel it and visit different places. He's called them Pokemon one time because we got to collect them all. And like you
Yeah,
said, Mark, it becomes an obsession.
yeah, it's terrible. I hate it.
Yeah, my wife went
I'm
with
a
her
junkie.
father and my son to Alaska, probably about 5 years ago now, and they loved it.
Yeah,
Didn't go to the ballpark or anything like that, but um, the Alaska Bureau of Tourism was a huge help. It was a totally different planning experience than we'd ever had before, where we would plan each individual piece ourselves. Where for for planning Alaska, it was better to go through the tourism board, and then there was like, okay, well, here we're gonna get you here and in this hotel and on this train and this and that, and yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience for them.
When
Yeah,
I've
they're
looked into
awfully friendly.
Alaska, the thing I've wanted to do is there is like helicopter tours that will take you
Mm.
like from Fairbanks all the way through the national park there and past what is that, Mount Sinai, Mount McKinley? I forget what it's called
Yeah,
now.
McKinley.
Yeah,
Denali now they call it.
Denali, that's it.
Denali.
And then all the way up to the northernmost point. What is that? Cape Barrow, and you stay overnight there, and then you helicopter back the next day. That is a piece I wanted to try to tie in if I ever make it up there.
Yeah, that's what my parents are coming on this Alaska tour, and that's what they're gonna. A lot of people who are coming on this are kind of extending it on the front or back end, and my parents are doing one of those helicopter tours too. That seems like a way to go. There's the train there, which is really cool, because you get all the scenic views,
Right.
but it's pretty slow. And the helicopter, you get the views too, and then it's you're right there. So that's a good. You got to make it happen, Paul.
If I was a rich man.
Yeah, seriously.
The other part is my schedule. I'm working for so many teams. I don't get the time off during the summer. So
Yeah.
Go in the
we'll
winter.
make it work someday. I get to retire in about 10 years,
Yeah.
so we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
good Alaska in the winter then. There you go.
Hey, you know what? Another one of the things I'm trying to do is visit all the NCAA college hockey rinks, and I'm about halfway through.
Mm,
There's two up in Alaska.
there you
But
Yeah,
go.
yeah, do you
yeah.
want to go to Alaska in January or February? I don't know.
Do you want to see
Fairbanks?
the sun?
I mean, Anchorage would be one thing. That would be okay. But Fairbanks is another story.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Dave, you said you had one more question about Japanese leagues.
Yeah, one of the things I dislike the most about like club soccer in Europe is the lack of parity. So you have all of these leagues where essentially there's one team or two teams and they dominate forever and ever and ever. England, maybe you've got three. How is the parity in Japanese baseball? Is it, do you have teams that'll go from bottom to top over time, or is it always the same sort of two or three, or how is the parity there?
I said it was very healthy parity. Historically, the Tokyo Giants, the Yomiuri Giants, were just utterly dominant. I mean, they created the league, they create all the rules. They are able to break the rules and make the rules to fit them. There's
Sounds
still
like
a
the
little bit of
Yankees.
it. Yeah, they are. They're oftentimes compared to the Yankees, but it's like not. I mean, the Giants were the only team broadcast across the whole country for a long time. So it's like, or it actually still I think is the case. It's like the Yankees times 10 because I mean, yeah, the Yankees also have a way to influence things in their favor even today. Um, but the Giants always had that mindset, but because they kind of are it's stuck in their ways, other teams have realized that we can start treating this like a more focused. Or I mentioned earlier, right? These teams originally existed as marketing arms of the company. Like they didn't exist necessarily to win, and they weren't really well run. And so now teams, it's a competitive advantage to really, invest more in player development. Analytics is starting to creep more into the game. They're paying, their other teams are willing to just pay more money for the players. And so there's just a more competition now. And yeah, there's definitely been, even just as of late, some good worst to first stories. And there's a lot of teams that like could do a lot more. But that is creeping more into the culture. And the SoftBank Hawks did have a dynasty for the last, I don't know, close to 10 years. But that's just because they're doing things really well and they were willing to spend the money, but it's more about spending the money on the entirety of your operation than it is just about buying all the best players. One thing that they refused to do was sell their players to MLB teams, which the players didn't like, but it helped their team a lot because they said, we're not going to just, for a lot of the other teams, it's an easy way to get whatever, $1 million, $10 million, maybe more, depending how good the player is. And they would just do it because like, why not? And the Hawks are like, we're not going to do that. We want to win. And so the teams who really set themselves to winning and have a good strategic plan are able to win in this league, which I really appreciate. Yeah, there's definitely not the English, EPL style where some teams just literally don't have a chance.
What is the setup there? Is there a minor league for the Pacific and Central leagues like there is here, or how do things work? I know
there is, but it's there's a lot that they could do there, and when you hear, well, I'll just say this: I think as far as getting a competitive advantage, that's one thing teams could really do to get an advantage is have more minor league teams. Most of them just have one team. Some have two teams. There's a pretty big gap between the top, the big league team and the minor league teams. The games are not well attended. There's this whole idea of, we all of us here on this call love minor league games and the novelty of it. That concept doesn't really exist in Japan in the same way. So, yeah, minor league baseball is not such a big thing. And I think that's a big opportunity from a fan and business perspective, but definitely from a baseball perspective to really like get more players into the system and invest in developing them to help the big league team.
All right. So since you're on the Stadium Journey podcast, Shane, we're going to put you to the test here. What are some of your favorite ballparks you've been to? And we're talking anywhere, not just Japan, not just United States, anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I definitely say, we talked about San Francisco. That is Oakland and San Francisco are my home ballparks. I love the Giants. It's my favorite one in the major leagues. The A's are like, I love going to A's games too because the characters there and it's just a unique experience. But I just love the Giants ballpark. So that definitely is one of my favorites. In Japan, I love Jingu Stadium, which we talked about because the fan experience and they're kind of the little brother to the Giants, and it's just a nice outdoor ballpark right in the heart of Tokyo. Elsewhere in the world, I love Estadio Tetelo Vargas in San Pedro in the Dominican Republic. It's not the most amazing stadium, but San Pedro is like the soul of baseball down there. Like it's just, baseball is in the water in San Pedro de Macorís, which is the full name of the town. So that definitely comes to mind. And the San Jose Giants, which is really my true hometown ballpark and have a lot of nostalgia growing up, going to games there. So I don't know, those are just rattling some off the top of my head, but I've been to ballparks all over the world and I love them all for different reasons.
Absolutely. That's why we visit so many, right? That's why we have a website called Stadium Journey. That's why we have websites called japanball.com. So I guess before we wrap up, Shane, let me give you a chance to peddle the site, peddle social media. Where can people get in touch with you if they have interest in some of these fantastic trips that you're putting out?
Well, you mentioned japanball.com, so that's a good starting point. If you're interested about our tours or about getting our Japanese baseball newsletter, you can sign up for our newsletter on japanball.com. That's a good way to keep in touch, and I send out updates of our tours there. We're on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. All of those, our handle is Japan Ball. Technically on Instagram it's Japan Ball Travel, but if you search for Japan Ball, you'll find us on any of those. We're putting out content just to help people know about how awesome Japanese baseball is and some interesting stuff, and then of course promoting our tours and different things we got going on with Japan Ball. So this year coming up, we have the Washington State and Alaska Midnight Sun Game Tour in June. We have Japan and Korea in September. We have the Dominican Republic in November. We're going to go to Okinawa, the island in Japan, for spring training next February. And then we'll go back to the Netherlands for Honkball Week in next summer. So if anyone is even remotely interested in going on any of those tours, give us a follow, sign up for the newsletter. You can sign up on our site for, we have it's called the no obligation interest list. You just put your name in and kind of let us know you're thinking about it. And then that way we will keep you informed of all the updates, and you don't have to put a deposit down or anything for any of our tours. That way you can just kind of keep it in mind. I understand that a lot of people, it might not be this year. It might be 2 or 3 years or even 5 or 10 years till they can come on one of our tours based on the investment in time and money. And that's totally cool. Just follow us and keep in touch. And when you're ready to come, we'll be ready for you.
Shane, you brought up one thing we didn't even touch on, which is really fascinated me that I would have never thought of, is that you talked about the Japanese leagues having spring training down in the southern island of Okinawa. I wouldn't thought about Japan doing the same thing there that we do here with Arizona and Florida. That was really
I mean, it's just a matter of the weather, same thing.
Right.
Japan gets pretty cold depending how far north you are, but so the teams go down to Okinawa in February, just like the American teams. And it's similar. And there's the backfields. It's free. You can watch them practice. They play only day games. Lots of them are just scrimmages, but they have some proper ticketed games. It's not such a big tourist thing. Spring training has blown up in the US. It's still awesome. I love spring training, but it's kind of like going to spring training in, 70s or 80s or prior. That's kind of how it is in Japan. So I'm really excited to bring a group there next year.
Yeah, you think about it. Like I think in Sapporo, especially up in the north, that's cold enough that they had an Olympics there in '72.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right, great stuff. And japanball.com. And that's how we got in touch, like I said. And I'm on your newsletter now. It comes out and it's very informative. It's really a pleasure when I get that in my inbox every week or so.
Yeah, well, thank you for reaching out, Paul. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys and meet you all. Hopefully I can catch a ball game with one or all of you at some point down the road. I appreciate what you guys are doing a lot. The resource that you guys provide, a lot of people in our community use it. And we have a lot of ballpark chasers that come on our trips. And so, you all are part of the family. And,
all right.
That's it. We aren't really competition.
That's all we need to hear.
Part of the same family.
Do you hear that? We're part of the family. We're moving in the basement. Yeah.
I am in the basement. All right. So, Dan, you got anything going on the next couple of weeks besides your crazy work schedule? And where can our listeners follow you?
You can watch me slowly go insane.
Nice.
Or quicker.
Awesome.
Dan Lloyd.
Got news for you. It hasn't been a slow trip.
Fair enough.
Mark, how about you?
That's probably true.
Yeah. Any stadium journeys on the itinerary, and where can our listeners follow you?
I'm gonna check out some college basketball in Cincinnati and Xavier. Hopefully, do a doubleheader that day, and that's the only thing that's on my list. Could do some local Indiana high school venues this weekend. We'll just see how scheduling is. Check out Ballpark Hunter on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment. Tons of videos. And this week, it's a little hockey, Lehigh Valley / Wheeling Nailers. You can check out that video. And you can also follow me on Twitter, where I always seem to be posting something of interest. So find me there at Ballpark Hunter.
I loved Wheeling. It had such a 70s vibe to it.
Yeah, Wheeling was fun. Wheeling was like an ideal size for that city, that league, and it was a good vibe. Great pizza down the street. So yeah, thumbs
It
up.
was close. Dave, you got anything planned, and where can our listeners follow your adventures?
Yeah, this Friday, it's a brand new hockey facility for the Brock Badgers, Canada Games Park. So I'm looking forward to that it's in Thorold, which is like across the road from St. Catharines. Got some Waterloo Warriors, either hockey or basketball coming up. And of course, some Wilfrid Laurier Golden Hawks hockey and basketball. The end of the season's coming up real soon. And I think I might just sneak down to Niagara to catch some Niagara Purple Eagles basketball. So you can follow some, none of that at ProFan9 on Instagram and Twitter.
And as for me, you can follow my stadium journeys on Twitter and Instagram at PuckmanRI. It's the busy season for this PA announcer, so I will be at UMass Dartmouth. I've got several basketball and hockey games. I've got a couple Brown hockey games coming up and a couple of Boston Pride games coming up. I may sneak out. I actually have a day off next Sunday. I may head down to the new basketball arena at Fairfield University, and I may be heading up to UMass for a basketball game, but that's all depending on if I'm not, dead tired. So like I said, PuckmanRI for those. And remember, folks, you can find all of our stadium reviews, all 2,500 of our stadium reviews, news items, and other feature stories on the website, the mothership, stadiumjourney.com. It's new and improved. I hope you're enjoying all the work that went into that. Connect with us on our social media channels. We're at Stadium Journey. Again, if you're looking for audio versions of this podcast, say you want to listen on your way into work, search HIAC Talk Radio Network wherever you look for your favorite podcast, and you'll find us. If you're looking to sit down at your desk and goof off at work and watch a video simulcast, go to Stadium Journey's YouTube page, and we'll be there. And you can join us for our live streams every other Tuesday night at 7 Eastern at danlaw.tv. Gregory, I'm sorry we didn't include your stuff on peanuts. Gregory had some interesting other reasons why ballparks don't like to have peanut shells hanging around. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Mark, you've got a guest book for us, a graphic artist and the designer of the Charlotte Knights logo, among others. His name slips my mind. What is
David Ruckman of David C. Ruckman Design.
All right, that's February 7th, 2 weeks from now. And as always, thanks everyone for your support. Shane, thanks once again for joining us tonight. This was a great conversation, and I really want to go to Japan now. For Dan, Mark, and Dave, this is Paul wishing you all a safe stadium journeys and close games wherever you go. Hope to see you all on the road again real soon. Be safe out there.